Today I'm showing you how to actually complete the Astra Malorum main quest. From the Wonder Weapon quest, to the statues and books, to the pillars and the giant eye bird, and of course the best boss fight strategies even after the Wonder Weapon nerf. I have the most accurate steps, and I have some fantastic cheat sheets for you, so let's take on Caltheris in Astra Malorum. As always, the first step of the Easter egg is turning on Power and Pack-a-Punch, which the game walks you through if you have your objective indicators turned on. Once we've turned on Power and Pack-a-Punch, we need to obtain the Wonder Weapon. To do so, we need to kill Oscar in 3 different ways. The first of which can be done in the Pack-a-Punch room itself. As soon as you turn on the Pack-a-Punch, you will notice a hissing noise coming from one of these valves or pipes. There are many different valves or pipes around this room, but only one of them will be releasing gas and hissing at a time. There are 2 valves above the Pack-a-Punch area on the scaffolding. There are 2 valves underneath the Pack-a-Punch area in that sunken in area. There is one in the teleporter room facing directly into the room. There are a few on the walls in the corners of the room, and there are a couple on the pillars of this room too. You need to shoot 5 of these in quick succession because this is time. Be sure to crank up your volume a little bit. The hissing is pretty obvious. The visual cue is also pretty obvious. They give you a reasonable amount of time, but you can fail this. If you do fail it, you can restart it in the same round that you failed it on. I believe if you interact with the piano, it will get the valves to reset. But once you have successfully shot 5 of these in a row, the telescope will activate, and now you need to lead an Oscar into this room. Once he's in the room, go into the telescope by interacting with the piano device in this area, kind of towards the left. And inside of this view, you will notice the stars, galaxy, all that good stuff. You need to move the cursor on the sun. It's the brightest thing in the sky there. Once you hover over the sun, after like half a second, it'll pull you out of the telescope and it will start this trap. You need to lead Oscar through this trap, and that should kill Oscar. Now, some people have said that Oscar needs to not be cloaked, not be shielded during this process. That is not what I have found. However, there is some truth to it. In all of these traps we're about to go over, if Klaus doesn't take enough damage from these traps, the step will fail. And so him having the shield might prevent him from taking enough damage if you are at high enough of a round. If you're doing this before round like 10 or so, I have never found an issue with doing any of these traps when he has his shield up. But once he has ran through this trap, he should start glowing, he should explode and die, he will drop a shiny trinket. Don't worry about that, that's a cool side quest. But now you can move on to the next trap. The next way of killing Oscar is going to require cryo freeze. Once you have cryo freeze, you are going to need to shoot the ether crystals around the map, and they will drop different fragments. You need to collect 3 of these fragments. Luckily, these have a 100% drop rate. Simply shoot them with a gun. It could be a melee gun with a cryo freeze on it, and you will drop that fragment. Once you have 3 fragments, bring another Oscar into the museum, and you can interact with this rocket. This rocket is going to initiate a launch sequence. It's going to count down from 5 all the way to 0. If Klaus is inside of this little area when it hits 0, again, early enough round, you should one-shot kill Oscar. Once again, he will drop a shiny trinket, and you will know that that step is done. Now, for the third trap, we need to collect 3 different parts. The first of which is a drone that you can get by shooting one of the drones off of Oscar. The first one you shoot will drop on the floor and you can collect it. The second is a battery that you get by taking a pack-punched weapon to spawn and shooting the hood of Old Tessie. Fair warning, this will spawn in a bunch of purple-eyed zombies, and it will teleport Oscar to you if he's on the map. The third part is some wiring that you can get from a flickering lamppost. This lamppost has been found everywhere outside the map, from the spawn room to the left of the spawn room, in the Wisp T area, in the center area, and even near Mule Kick. It is a very obvious flickering lamppost. Once you see it, shoot it with your pack-a-punch weapon a couple times and it should drop the wiring. You need all 3 of these parts in order to initiate this third trap. We are using the map-specific trap, this laser trap in this room, but the first time you interact with it, you will be placing all of these parts on the trap. Once again, once you've placed all of those parts and you have an Oscar in the room, simply interact with the trap to begin the process. Now, at the end of this process, this is a battery overload, and again, it works kind of like a trap, where it will like explode or do something and kill Oscar if Oscar is within this room. Again, if you're nervous, if you're on too high of a round, it might not one-shot Oscar, so you might want to drop his shields or do some damage and shoot him while you're doing this. But after this third and final trap, he should drop the Wonder Weapon, which is worth mentioning. You could do any of these 3 traps in whatever order you want to. But once you have the Wonder Weapon, we are ready to head on to the main quest steps, which requires another Oscar. Once Oscar has spawned in, you want to make sure you're above round 10, because according to Earl Shatter, this next step doesn't work if you're before round 10. But if you have Oscar and you're on round 10 or above, you can follow behind Oscar and he is going to be playing some quotes. I highly recommend you turn on subtitles because you are going to need to follow Oscar. Don't worry, you can get really close to Oscar, and so long as you avoid his line of sight fight or shooting him. You can make as much noise as you want, you can kill zombies behind him, he will not notice you. But eventually he will have a playback number 20. Number 20 is the one you're looking for. That is his conversation with Dr. Thurston. Dr. Thurston will have some dialogue and he is going to say 3 different planets. Those 3 different planets can be translated into 3 different numbers based on how far away they are from the sun. So I have this very useful cheat sheet for you, and you can see which planet correlates to which number away from the sun it is. So in this gameplay, I have Mars, Uranus, and Mercury. With our planets and our numbers, we can make our way to the Pack-a-Punch room and interact with this device. And in this specific example, it changes every game and you're going to have a different combo than I do. Mars is the 4th planet, so it's going to be a number 4. Uranus is the 7th planet, so it's a number 7. And then Mercury is the 1st planet, so it's a number 1. Once you've input that code and exited this machine, if done correctly, this platform should lower. You have 2 attempts to do this per round, so if you fail once, don't worry. You could try again, but if you fail twice, you'll have to flip the round. Once this elevator is down, you can go ahead and pick up this key. This is a cryo chamber key that we're going to use, and we need to go to the museum and pick up a saw. Inside of the museum, it's on this side of the room, it's to the left as soon as you walk in. Simply smash the glass and pick up the saw. With the key and the saw, we can make our way over to whatever this room is. I think it's a bar type room kind of area, but you interact with the cryo chamber. This is Dr. Thurston, and then you're going to hold and operate on his brain, obviously using the keys in the bone saw that we just got. But now that you've picked up Dr. Thurston's brain, you take it all the way back over to the Juggernog room, and you will replace the monkey brain in this container with Dr. Thurston's. Interact with it to begin a lockdown process. All you need to do is defend it before the health goes too low. It's really easy, not that big of a deal. Now, once the lockdown is done, you can pick up the brain and bring it to the teleporter room. But be careful, your movement will be incredibly slow. So what I always like to do is I like to pick up the brain as soon as the white flash hits, so that way you get ahead of the zombie spawns. Once inside the teleporter room, just place it in this holder, and you will need to hold to interact in order to attach it. Now from here, the next 2 steps can be done interchangeably, but first I'm going to cover getting the coordinates. Make your way back to the telescope and interact with the left side, and you will want to move the cursor until it is pointing at Mars. There's a pretty big margin for error, just make sure your cursor is on Mars right there. Once it's on Mars, take a look at the bottom left-hand corner of your screen at the declination. In this example, my declination is 5741, and so those are the 4-digit numbers we're going to remember. Going back inside the teleporter room, on the main level there is this device that you can interact with and place in your 4 digits. Now I have gotten a single digit in one of the pairs of these numbers, so I just put that in as 05 and that worked for me. Hopefully that makes sense. Once you've input those coordinates for the teleporter, you should be good to go on to the next step, which is everybody's favorite, the library step. On the brain device, there is now a scrolling list of books. You want to write down the names of those books. Usually I just write down the first initial. People have written down the last word, the first word, whatever makes the most sense to you. It's important to note there is no set amount of books. It could be 4, it could be 6, it could be more, but make sure you have all of the books because they are very important. Now we need to make our way to the library, where we have 3 different sets of bookshelves and 3 different statues. For example, this statue is tied to this entire section of bookshelf. This statue is tied to all of these bookshelves, this entire section. And then turning around, this statue is tied to all of these bookshelves. Furthermore, there are actually books you can look at on this shelf. If you interact with it, it pulls up a little screen and it tells you what book is on that bookshelf. Luckily, these books do not change. They are on the same bookshelf every single game. This means that the statues are correlated to the exact same books every single game. What we are tasked to do is figure out how many books that we got from the brain device are found in each section of these bookshelves. Luckily, the bookshelves don't move and the books do not move. So I have made this cheat sheet, which I think makes it a lot simpler. You can see I have the red statue on the left right there. As if you're facing the teleporter room. On the right statue, I have those lists of books right there. And then that back statue, the one you have to turn around for, I have those books right there. So all you need to do is count how many named books you got from the device, and that will tell you how many times you need to turn those statues. So looking at my cheat sheet here, if we got Pyramids of Sidonia and the Witchlight Codex, we will know to turn that left statue, that red statue, twice. And then if the only book we got on the right statue was the Black Veil, we would only need to turn that that statue once. I really hope that makes sense. It's a lot simpler to actually do than it is to explain, but a huge tip that you beautiful people got from me was that in order to interact with these statues, it does not need to be at the start of a round. You can do this at the end of the round like you see me doing here. The only caveat is that once you interact with the statue, you only have a limited amount of time to move the other statues, and you only get to try once per round. But at the start of every single round, they will reset. And a big warning here, the statue does move really smoothly. So I always like to just really quickly tap my interaction button so that I don't accidentally double input. If you have successfully turned the statues the correct amount of times, a secret compartment in the ceiling on top of the ladder will open up and you can climb it and pick up Neptune. I will have this cheat sheet linked in the description, and as a bonus, I have an alternate version of the cheat sheet. If mentally you want to face the opposite way of the room, you could see stamina and the ladder right there are indicators of how the room is orientated, so both of those will be in the description if you want. But now that you have Neptune, make your way back into the teleporter room, go all the way up to the second story, and you can put Neptune here. Now we need to rotate 3 different planets to the correct position. We do so by looking at 3 different note cards around the map. The first note card can be found inside of this room on the table right here. Be sure to write down which planet and which direction it wants you to put it in. The second card can be found in the library on top of this desk right here. Once again, write down the planet and what direction it needs to be placed in. And the third card is found all the way across the map inside of the planetarium, where the laser trap is on top of this table right there. Now, every card has a picture and the name of the planet on it. It is written in cursive and it can be hard to see depending on your settings. So again, here's my cheat sheet. Mars is the red planet, Neptune is the blue planet, and then Saturn is the planet with the rings. Once you know all 3 of the planets and the directions they need to go in, make your way back to the teleporter room, and all you need to do is shoot the planets until they are at the correct position. You'll notice at the sun right there, there are cardinal directions. All you need to do is shoot these planets until they are roughly in the position where the note card said they should be. I've seen people say you need a certain pack-a-punch weapon to only move it a certain amount, and while that might be true, these positions do not need to be precise. If you are relatively close, this step should proceed. And on top of that, luckily, no other planets except Mars, Saturn, and Neptune are actually movable. So Neptune is obviously the blue one on the outermost rim, Saturn is the one with the rings, and then Mars is the small red one closer to the sun. But finally, once all the planets are in the right rotation, once you've input the coordinates to Mars, we can interact with the brain computer and begin a lockdown sequence. This lockdown sequence involves Oscar. Oscar will be automatically teleported here, and it is your job to prevent any UFOs from destroying the teleporter. This is very intense, especially on your first couple go-arounds. Oscar will always be shielded during this lockdown, so it's really no use of shooting down his drones. Instead, you want to listen out because there are specific drones that he sends out to destroy the teleporter. They're a little bit slower, a little bit bigger, and they make a beeline straight for the teleporter. Now, some tips for this. I've seen a lot of people say to be on like the second floor so you're level and you have a lot of room to run around, which does make sense, but strangely, I find that really difficult to shoot these UFOs. They're really flat, so I find it kind of hard to actually shoot them and destroy them. So I found a lot of success being on the ground floor, like right next to the teleporter. Yes, it's a lot closer to Oscar, it's a lot closer to the zombies, but I can really easily destroy the UFOs from that angle. But ultimately, do whatever you're most comfortable with. And have some fun, because if you successfully protect the teleporter as it's starting up, it is going to automatically teleport you to where? Well, where else other than the coordinates we put into it? That's right, we get teleported to Mars. Enjoy the scenery, have some fun, and while you're here, the brain is going to spawn in on Mars. Simply pick it up from the center and then place it on this pedestal, and you will need to hold to interact and build it and actually interface with the actual thing. But once you do that, be very careful, because we need to attract a bird. And by a bird, I mean an eye with wings. It's kind of weird. The way we do that is by interacting with the brain, and it will make this noise. This noise attracts the eye and allows you to complete the next step. This can only be done 1 time per round. It isn't random and it doesn't happen automatically, at least as far as I've tested. You need to interact with the machine, it should play the noise, and then you can go down to either one of these window barriers where you see these sort of Tesla coil-like looking things. You need to shoot the furthest one back into the right until it glows blue. That will attract the bird there. Then move on to the furthest one back into the left and shoot that one. It should glow blue. blue, it will attract the bird there. Then move on to the closest one to the right, kind of in a zigzag fashion. Once again, it will attract the bird there. Shoot the closest left one, it will attract the bird. And then after that fourth one, you need to turn around inside of the playable area and shoot this one at the top of the bridge of the teleporter right there. This will get the bird slash floating eye inside of this playable area, and all you need to do is wait for it to fly low and collect it. Fair warning, this is timed, but if you keep shooting that final Tesla coil looking antenna, it will keep the eye in the playable area. So periodically just keep shooting the antenna, and I usually just wait until the bird is really close to either like the staircase right there, or there is a way if you're on the center pillar area where the eye will actually be really close. You have to be really close to the eye in order to pick it up. I always hold interact in order to pick it up. Don't stress too much, it's not that big of a deal. If you miss it, you could just keep shooting the antenna and then wait for it to get back into a better position. Fair warning though, I tried to do this step with the M10 breacher, and apparently its pellets couldn't reach those antenna in the far back. So you might need to buy a gun off the wall in order to get those far back pillars or far back antennas. But with that step completed, you've picked up the eye. You can place the eye inside of this machine right here, and we have one very easy, very fun step to do. Once you place the eye here, you could take out your wonder weapon and you can shoot these circular antennas on top of these 5 statues. And from what I've tested, you don't need to do this in any specific order. Just make sure you shoot all 5 of these antennas with the wonder weapon. You'll know when you've successfully shot it when the UFOs kind of float around it and it starts glowing. Once you've shot all 5, we need to interact with the symbols on these pillars in a specific order. Luckily, the game tells us that specific order back in the Pack-a-Punch room. If you interact with the piano, there is a display where it will show you all 5 of the symbols. Well, sorta. It shows you 5 symbols, except one of them is blurred out with static. This is a very important piece of information. You need to write down the order of these symbols. Remember, there are 5, and of course, make sure you note down where in the sequence that static or unknown symbol is. Because going back to Mars, we need to interact with these pillars in that same order. And all you need to do is use your basic process of elimination to figure out which symbol correlates to the blurred out or static symbol. Now, I've seen a lot of people make this step a lot more complicated than it needs to be. I have these symbols on the cheat sheet, but as you can see, they are actually the same symbols. They're a little bit different, but they're really, really easy to remember. There are 2 pillars at the top of the stairs. There's 2 pillars in the left side in the corner there, and there's 1 pillar on the right side. Like, they're very easy to figure out. I have faith in you. You can do this. So you've taken your sequence and you need to interact with all of these symbols in order. Luckily, if you make a mistake, they are working on a 3 strikes and you're out sort of thing. So if you accidentally input the wrong symbol, you can try again immediately, but if you make 3 mistakes, you have to turn to the next round. But once you've successfully interacted with all 5 statues, all 5 pillars with the right symbols in the right order, congratulations, you are on the boss fight. To initiate the boss fight, all you need to do is interact with the brain again. But before you do so, I would highly recommend a triple Pack-a-Punched legendary gun, even Pack-a-Punching the wonder weapon once or twice. I would recommend all of the perks. I would recommend either stim shots or Casimirs or monkey bombs. And for your lethal, it's really up to you. I think one of you beautiful people said that point turrets don't get destroyed by mimics. I haven't tested that out, but maybe that could be really good. And for your field upgrade, I would highly recommend Ether Shroud with 2 charges, especially now that the wonder weapon with Frenzied Guard exploit has been fixed. And I will recommend checking out my full video on the boss fight and strategies, where I go through every single thing in much more detail. It's a fantastic video, especially because I don't use the wonder weapon exploit, but I will cover the highlights here. For our augments, Juggernog with Turtle Shell, Hardened Plates, Durable Plates is a must. Stamina Up with Gung Ho is fantastic for keeping you on the move while able to deal damage. PhD with Gravity MD, allowing you to just fall and create explosions, makes this a ton safer, especially because of the low gravity. But I would recommend PhD with Environmentalist and Tribologist, because in this boss fight, if you slide through the meteors in the first phase or the purple glowing rocks in the last phase, Environmentalist will fully protect you while you're sliding. The last minor augment for Shatter Blast will also increase damage you do through armor by 30%. And with how much of a bullet sponge this enemy can be, I think that is an easy go-to. For double tap, I really like double standard, but there's absolutely a great upside to having double impact as well. And double time for double tap is also really good, just more rate of fire is awesome. For Mule Kick, I would recommend the major augment that allows you to have more ammo, and the minor augment that allows you to have extra armor. For Deadshot, I would recommend the major augment that further increases your critical damage. For your minor augment, I would recommend 2 minor augments, the one that reduces your hipfire spread spread and the one that increases damage to armor plates. For Death Perception, Sixth Sense is a great go-to reducing damage from your back, but I actually want you to avoid the last minor augment of Death Perception. If you have the last minor augment for Death Perception on, it will actually cause you to not be able to see salvage armor plates and ammo on the ground. You could still see them, but they're not outlined, which is actually a pretty big downside. For your weapon, I think the Jaeger 45 with the Prestige attachment and Akimbo are fantastic. The M10 Breacher has some good damage. The new SMGs Akimbo do fantastic damage. The Nova line is consistent. The XM325 LMG is also a powerhouse. And I've heard good things about the dual wield Coda 9s. And also before going into the boss fight, I would recommend having at least 30,000 points to spare. Believe me, you're gonna need them. Once you're in the boss fight, welcome to a 4-phase boss fight. The first phase, you were just fighting, well, the asteroid you were just playing on. For the first phase of this first phase, you need to kill zombies in order to charge up a laser. While you're doing this, the boss will be shooting you with a laser, and all you need to do is keep on the move in order to avoid it. Once you've killed enough zombies, you can go up to the head and you need to hold to interact in order to fire the laser. The best practice I found is to train it down below, and when you've killed enough zombies to charge the laser, bring the zombies away from the brain as much as you can, and then simply be patient and wait until the laser that's attacking you is done, and then you can sprint over to the brain and interact with it, and you should be relatively safe. Of course, keeping your back to any zombies so that Turtle Shell can save you. The next mini phase of this first phase, the only thing that changes, you're still gonna need to get zombie kills, but she will start shooting meteors at you that leave behind an area of effect. With PhD Environmentalist, you can slide through this. Once again, simply kill zombies until the laser's charged up, bring the zombies away, wait till the lasers cool down, and then go up to the brain, interact with it, and then boom, you've taken down another third of her health. For the last phase, she's able to do all of the other attacks, plus she will litter the arena with a toxic gas. From all that I've tested, this gas is not lethal, and it will only bring you down a little bit of HP. With the augment setup I had, I only had 175 HP, so it doesn't kill you, but it does leave you vulnerable. But if you want to be safe from the gas, you could go to the middle pedestal and jump back to the top of the stairs and kind of just go back and forth between those two. Once again, killed enough zombies to have that charged up, interact with it, boom, there you go, you've completed this first phase. The next 3 phases are very similar to one another. Caltheros will actually be a rock monster in the middle of this arena, and you can shoot her, and specifically the blue rocks or the blue armor pieces on her. Once those blue armor pieces are blown off, it will reveal a critical point or a weak point, and you can deal some insane damage there. During this first phase, she only has 2 real attacks. She can kind of just smack you if you get too close, and she can throw little rocks at you. I don't know if it's just me, but during this first phase, those little rocks are incredibly deadly. I can dodge the phase 2 and 3 rocks a little bit better, but this first phase rocks, just be careful. Something that I found to work fairly well, at least in this first phase, is to, instead of jumping around the arena, you want to slide around the arena. Sliding, in my opinion, gives you a little bit more control, and it allows me to dodge those rocks a little bit easier. Now, for all phases of this boss fight, I generally try to train in a triangle type of way. I usually go to either end of the staircases going back and forth, and then I usually just try to go to the middle pedestal, which I guess is less of a triangle and more of a trapezoid, but whatever. Once you've reached the end of her health bar, she will regenerate again, and welcome to phase 3. She will get a little bit bigger, the rocks will get a little bit bigger, and she will now have a ground pound attack. You have to be paying a lot of attention to this because the radius on this is insane. It can take a full armor plate off of you, so be very careful. If you're far enough away, you will avoid this, but this ground slam covers like half of the arena, so instead the consistent way to avoid it is to, well, jump. If you jump and she ground pounds, you could be really close and not take any damage. Once again, describing it for you now, it's really simple. Simply shoot her until the armor plates break and she has that weak point. The wonder weapon, in my experience, if it's upgraded enough, can do wonders for exposing that weak point, and then using your M10 or your Jaegers to deal critical damage is a great combo. But I have found that a lot of the times when I try to use the wonder weapon, it goes after zombies instead of the boss, so your results may vary. But you might want to kill some zombies to try to have a chance of getting back some ammo and armor from them. But once you've taken down this third phase, she enters in the most deadly phase, the fourth phase. She gets even bigger, taking up even more of the arena space, and on top of the ground pound and the slam attack, the rocks that she throws will now leave behind an area of effect which will heavily damage you unless you're sliding through them with PhD's Environmentalist. In theory, this is just the same as the other phases except just bigger, but between her size and how aggressive she is and how much of the arena that gets locked down by her size alone and the rocks, this can be incredibly overwhelming. Luckily, we have a friend in Vaetherion. Vaetherion during the start of this phase will give you a blessing. It is a special power-up that spawns in the middle of the console right here. This will completely refill your armor, refill your ammo, and it will give you infinite ammo until its duration is over. You still have to reload and everything, but it won't take any from your stock. And from here, it's once again just shoot her weak points until that critical point is revealed, and then just shoot her till she's dead. I love using my Ether Shroud here. I love trying to save my Ether Shroud for this phase specifically. Warning though, when you use your Ether Shroud, she will try running away, which can be very tedious and annoying. I have heard from one of you beautiful people that toxic growth will slow her down, and while I have gotten this to work on the second phase, I didn't get this to work on the third phase. But I think it is worth mentioning here because that could be really fun. And this is where the 30,000 points I recommended to you comes into play. I have found that zombies hardly ever drop armor during this entire boss fight. On top of that, outside of Vaetherion's blessing, there is no max ammo / max armor, but there is an armor wall buy that you can use in order to replenish your plates. Now, because this armor wall buy replenishes your vest, but it doesn't replenish your reserves, I will actually recommend that you don't run the Armormatic Major Augment of Vulturade. That augment now automatically pulls from your reserve and applies it to your armor vest, which in normal gameplay is good, but in a boss fight where armor plates are really important, it's actually not that great. Usually I do have to buy armor before phase 4, but I try to limit that to at max one time before this phase, because if I have around 20,000 points at this phase, I can refill my armor twice, and I can use Vaetherion's blessing as a third refill. In terms of movement, during the third and fourth phases of this boss fight, I have found kind of wall jumping in that trapezoid triangle type of way to be fairly good, but above all, I would absolutely avoid the corners of this because she is so big, especially on these final phases. She can easily trap you. If she does, I would turn around, use your turtle shell and try to get around her, or use an Ether Shroud if you have to. And for Gobblegums, Shields Up is fantastic, Power Keg is fantastic for another field upgrade charge, and I gotta shout out Armageddon because it will not only refill all of your plates in your vest, but it will give you all of your reserve plates too. I know it's new and not everybody has a ton of those yet, but down the road it can be very helpful. And as a secret bonus, Temporal Gift will actually make Vaetherion's blessing last a little bit longer. And if you manage to finally take down Caltheris, congratulations, this is, in my opinion, one of the hardest bosses in all of zombies. I beat every single boss of Black Ops 3 on my first try. Of the Easter eggs I've actually done in Black Ops 4, I beat those on my first try, and on my second and third try too. But this one's tough. But if you want a little bit of backup, you want a little bit of help, be sure to join my Discord and use the round-based looking for players because there are a ton of great people looking to help each other out with this Easter egg. But if you want to go solo and you really want to beat this without any Gobblegums, without any exploits, be sure to check out this video and stay beautiful.